The big three are in a shuttle with a Federation diplomat, and a strange gas cloud disables the shuttlecraft, and they have to land on a strange planet with an even stranger dude living on it. And it turns out the gas cloud is this guy's best friend. But things ain't as they seem, and even the weird dude is kinda in the dark. It's a classic story of boy meets cloud as we take a look at Metamorphosis. Hit it!
Hey!
Two major guest stars this week. As a young again Zephram Cochrane, we got Glenn Corbett. Most famous at the time for his major roles in the series It's a Man's World, Route 66, and The Road West, Glenn would later star in 455 episodes of soap opera The Doctors and 20 episodes of Dallas, but would also look in on genre shows like Automan, Manimal, and Fantasy Island. Playing Federation Commissioner Nancy Hedford is Eleanor Donahue, probably most famous for her appearance in 200 episodes of Father Knows Best as Betty Anderson, and for my money, her 12-episode run on The Andy Griffith Show as Sheriff Taylor's girlfriend in Season 1, Ellie Walker. Her later career would take her all over the place, from Mork and Mindy to Days of Our Lives, from the Odd Couple series to Happy Days, Friends, and Herman's Head, if you remember that one, as well as appearances in movies like Princess Diaries 2 and Pretty Woman. Star Trek is pulling from a more illustrious talent pool this season, huh? Well, enough about that. Let's get into the plot. We begin with Kirk, Spock, and Dr. McCoy in the shuttlecraft Galileo, taking Federation Commissioner Nancy Hedford back to the Enterprise from a peace negotiation on Epsilon Canaris 3 as she has come down with Sakuro's disease, a rare and life-threatening disease she ain't too happy about having. Thinks they should have vaccinated her for it. McCoy takes issue with that, it being crazy rare and all, but he don't get too nasty about it or nothing. She does have the friggin' thing. Spock looks into his bowl and he sees something weird. He tells Kirk to look into his bowl, and Kirk confirms it's weird. They open the windows and we see what they was seeing when they was looking at their bowls. It's a sparkly blob and it's coming right for them. They try to go around, but no dice. It stays with them. Spock says it's gaseous, but with crazy electrical stuff going on inside it. It surrounds the shuttlecraft and starts a disco light show inside it, while it disables the shuttlecraft and pulls them off course. After the opening credits, we see that they've managed to land on some kind of planet, but their systems are fried, including communications, so they're stuck and have no way to tell the Enterprise where to find them for rescue. Spock and McCoy scan the place and see that it's safe to get out and walk around and stuff. Spock says they ain't on a planet exactly, more like the remnant of a planetary collision or something. Big enough to have an atmosphere, but it ain't a planet per se. Kirk tells the boys to grab some phasers, and they tell the commissioner lady to hang out inside while they go check it out. She ain't too happy about that. They jump out and look around, and the place looks all purple and stuff, but pretty normal otherwise. Kirk weirdly tells the only doctor on the team to go off by himself and scout the unknown planet, and he and Spock go check under the hood of the Galileo. Spock says essentially that there ain't nothing wrong with the gal, it just don't work. They keep working on it. Well, Hedford ain't gonna be told to stay inside for long, so she comes out and looks around. McCoy comes back and says that he's detected that sparkle gas thing on the planet with them, but it's like way over there. Just then, they hear a dude yelling. All the dudes they know of are right here, and Hedford is a soprano, so this must be a new dude. Well, way off, there's a guy in a creamsicle-colored Pajia mining jumpsuit jumping off of some papier-mâché rocks and waving like a maniac. He repeats this a couple of times and eventually ends up in the scene. He's a pleasant-looking guy and is asking if he's imagining seeing our guys. Kirk says they're real, and dude seems surprised that they're speaking English. He asks if they're from Earth, and Kirk says they're from the Federation. Dude don't seem to know what that is, but he says his name is Cochrane, and he's been marooned on this planet for a really long time. Kirk intros the guys and Nancy, and Cochrane correctly recognizes Spock as a Vulcan and Nancy as a woman. He awkwardly drools over her for a bit, but then tries to play it off like he was drooling over all of them, which does not ease the awkwardness of the moment in the least. He goes over and checks out the Galileo, not Miss Hedford. Anyways, he really likes the design, but tells them it ain't gonna work. Spock is like, what an odd thing to say. Dude says there's some kind of dampening field around that screws with power systems. They ask about the sparkle gas, and he says, you don't know nothing about that. McCoy's been scanning him with the tricorder during all of this and tells Kirk that he is indeed human. Well, human Cochrane invites them all to his place over that-a-way. Says he's got all the comforts of home and not done yet being awkward, tells Nancy she can take a bath there. This guy's been on his own for a long time. Cochrane compliments the gal again, and Kirk suggests Spock show him how it works since he's been out of it for so long. And while they're doing that, Kirk and McCoy huddle up. McCoy says he's being kind of evasive, saying a lot of stuff, but not really saying nothing. Kirk agrees, but also says that Cochrane looks familiar to him. McCoy goes, hey, yeah, he does, huh? Also, we gotta get out of here soon. Nancy ain't got a fever yet, but it's coming. And you don't want to be around for the turning purple, the projectile vomiting, and the singing Hoyt Axton songs at the top of her lungs stage. Sakuro's is a weird-ass disease, and we gotta get out of here. So they go to Cochrane's place, and it's a weird little postmodern geometry problem he says he built out of his crashed ship. Nancy is starting to feel lightheaded, and McCoy gets a concerned look on his face as they go inside. Kirk compliments the place and picks up a garbage disposal from the table, pointing out that it's really old. Cochrane is like, oh, yeah, you guys probably have better incinerators now, huh? Kirk hands it over to Spock, who is really starting to think there's something hinky about this guy. Nancy says she's hot, and Cochrane goes to get her a drink. McCoy asks her if she's feeling okay, and she ain't too happy about pretty much everything. McCoy tells Kirk, yep, fever. Told you. Hope you like Della and the dealer. Spock calls the guys over to the front door where he's seeing something weird. It fades away pretty quick, but it's definitely the sparkle gas blob. They ask Cochrane what gives, and he says, the light can be weird sometimes. Spock straight up says, that's horse. That was a sparkle gas blob, and it's the same sparkle gas blob that crashed our asses on this planet. So talk, Peaches. What the hell? He says, I don't know what you're talking about. And Kirk basically snaps and says, look, Dingleberry, you're a dude way out where there shouldn't be no dudes. You look fine, you're like 32, and you ain't never heard of the Federation. Your garbage disposal ain't even Wi-Fi capable. You got a door knocker stapled to your chest. Now what the hell gives, jumpsuit? Well, Cochrane comes clean. That sparkle gas blob, he calls it the Companion. He didn't crash, he was brought to the planet. The Companion saved his life, and not because he was injured, but because he was a really old dude. And the Companion made him into a much newer dude. Also, he can talk to it. Kirk puts two and two together and asks Cochrane if he's got a first name. He, as so many do, does. Zephram. Zephram Cochrane, the inventor of the warp drive. Well, the discoverer of the space warp, whatever the hell that means. McCoy says, that can't be. He died 150 years ago. Cochrane says, yep, I was 87 and I wanted to die in space. Companion said, no. It brought me here. It keeps me young and provides food, air, Miller High Life, whatever, out of the materials on the planet. Kirk wants him to ask it why it brought them here, and Zeph says, yeah, about that. I think I already know. See, I told it I was lonely and needed some more people around. I thought it was going to let me go, but apparently it went, people shopping. Well, clearly this is the last straw for Nancy because she straight up loses it. They get her into the bedroom and McCoy knocks her out with a hypo. Kirk comes back in and tells Spock to figure out how to blow the Companion up. Spock seems a little hesitant, go figure, but heads out to get to work. Kirk turns to Zeph and says, hey, you want to get out of here and see all the stuff that the thing you did created? He's like, oh, hell yeah. Well, great. Let's make it happen. Zeph is on board. We'll cut to Spock using science engineering thing on the shuttle, and the Companion comes up and looks over his shoulder at what he's doing. Spock notices it and stares at it, and like any good scientist would, sticks his hand in it. The sparkles turn up a notch, and then it zots the hell out of Spock. Then the shuttle's ass catches on fire. Well, back in Casa de Zeph, Kirk asks Cochrane to ask the Companion if it can cure Nancy as she's fading fast. So he goes out in the yard, and he stands there with his eyes closed. Suddenly, the companion appears and then moves over so that Zeph is now standing inside it. He just stands there, and Kirk and McCoy talk about how weird that is. Kirk says it's like a pet owner talking to his pet, and you don't say which is which. McCoy says it's more than that. Kirk says, yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like love. McCoy seems to say that's kind of a weird conclusion to jump to. It's a dude in a gas cloud, but it's been a really weird day, so what do I know? The companion takes off, and Kirk and McCoy ask if it's going to help. Zeph says it can't do nothing about it. If they're going to save her, they got to get her out of here. Cut to the shuttlecraft, and McCoy comes running up to tell Spock the new plan, I guess, because from the previous scene, it's obvious nobody heard the companion zotting Spock halfway across the soundstage. Well, he finds our science officer lightly toasted, but mostly okay. He tells McCoy what happened and that it seems to indicate that them sparkles in the sparkle gas is just regular old electricity. McCoy says that means we can short it out. Now, I'm no electrician, but I don't know that that's necessarily what that means, but let's roll with it. We'll cut back to the Octo House, and Spock's got a box, and the box can scramble the electrical impulses of the companion. Zeph is having some guilt issues, though. The thing did save his life, and he admits to having a kind of affection for the thing. He demands that they not kill the companion, and Kirk says, hey, if it gets us out of here, I'll snort the thing and sneeze into a friggin' blender. One way or the other, we're getting out of here. Zeph is like, good point, I guess. I'll go get it. Zeph goes out in the yard, and Spock and Kirk set up at the entrance to the house. The companion shows up, and Spock throws the switch. Sparkles gets zotted, and that zots Cochrane, who was standing inside it. Probably should have seen that coming. But then it turns red and comes after Kirk and Spock. It comes in the house and is having its way with our boys until McCoy comes out from checking on Nancy and tells it to knock it off. It's killing them. It don't seem moved by the doctor's plea, but Zeph wakes up and does his summoning thing again, and Sparky turns back yellow and fades out from the house. The boys look outside, and it's around Cochrane again. Kirk is lamenting that he don't know how to fight something like that thing, and McCoy says, well, I don't know, you could try talking to it? We'll cue the light bulb over Kirk's head. He goes in and tells Spock to grab the universal translator from the shuttle and adapt it to talk to gas. Spock says, do what now? Kirk says, just do it. Well, he heads out. Cut to the friggin' Enterprise. Half an hour in, and the Big E finally makes her entrance. Scotty's in the chair with Kirk and Spock gone, and he's cutting a log entry that the shuttlecraft is overdue, and they're starting to search for him. They find some residual yada yada and are following where it leads. It runs out, and Scotty says something must have taken over at that point. Nothing else to do but follow where it looked like it was leading before it ran out. We'll cut back to Shea Zeph, and Spock is constructing a lightsaber. But instead of a laser blade, it produces translated brain waves. We're just going to leave it at that. It's kind of nonsense, though it is high-quality nonsense. Point is, the thing is a translator, hence the name. Zeph goes out to call Sparkles, and Kirk and Spock stand outside with the translator. Sparky shows up and gets on Zeph again, and Kirk says, hey, what's up? The companion kind of freaks out and says, how the heck am I talking to you? But it says it in a feminine voice. The it is actually a she. Well, Kirk and the gas lady go back and forth saying the same stuff for a bit, but it boils down to this. Kirk says they got to get out of here because one of them is sick, and even if that wasn't the case, humans die in captivity, so they're all screwed, even Zeph, no matter how immortal you're making him. She says, that's horse. You're immortal, and Zeph, whom she calls the man, needs other people so he don't die. So you're gonna live forever, and he's gonna live forever. Spock says, hey, ask her about science stuff, and Kirk basically calls him a nerd. The companion leaves. Well, they all go back inside, and Zeph wants to know why the lightsaber talked like a girl. Kirk says it sensed science stuff that made it obvious the companion is a woman. He's like, I don't get it. McCoy drops the bomb on him. Dude, you ain't the gas lady's pet. You're her boyfriend. Even Spock is trying to explain it to him. The gas is softer looking when it's talking to you, dude. She gets more pleasant coloring. She starts smelling like that obsession. What don't you get? It's at this point that Zeph gets a little, let's call it Baptist about all this. He rants about how icky that is, calls everybody immoral, and then storms out. After he leaves, Spock literally calls him parochial. Well, Nancy has apparently been listening to all this and calls McCoy in there to where she is. She can't believe that Zeph is loved by the companion and is kind of crapping all over it. She's had a successful career, but she ain't never been loved like that, and that sucks. But here's this dingleberry who's got a sparkle gas blob who loves him, and he don't appreciate it. As she breaks down in tears, Kirk comes in, and he and McCoy share a look that says, I don't know what to do with that. Cut to the Enterprise, and they've reached the asteroid field where the Galileo crashed, but they don't know which one they crashed on. Sulu IDs the ones with atmospheres, which is about a third of them, and Scotty says, well, pick one and let's get started. Uhura says, that's like 1,000 possibilities. Scotty's like, yep, and I guess we better get started, huh? We cut back to the surface, and we're in the middle of a conversation. Zeph is standing in the yard in his talk-to-gas stance, and Kirk's got his walkie-talkie lightsaber and is asking if the companion loves the man. She's like, hell no, damn the man. Oh, you mean Zeph? Well, I don't know. What's this love you speak of? Kirk explains and also tells her that her feelings for Zeph are what's going to kill him. Not his body, but his spirit, he says. Humans need obstacles to overcome in order to survive, and you're screwing all that up. And besides, he's a dude and you're sparkle gas, so how's that going to work? You can't love, like love, huh? Companion's like, but if I was a human lady, And then she fades out. Well, as the guys are discussing how that went, suddenly Nancy comes out and suddenly has a lot of reverb on her voice. McCoy scans her and she seems to be okay. But he don't get how that's possible. Turns out the companion is in there too. They're both crammed in there together. The companion got in there just before Nancy was going to croak, and now they're both fine. Zeph is kind of freaked out by this, and who can blame him? But she says she's given up being an immortal gas cloud so that she can be human and understand love. And that Nancy is also in there and she's cool with it. Realizing what she gave up just to connect with him better, Zeph chills out and decides he's on board. Also, the dampening field is gone, so both the shuttle and the communicators work now. The Nancy Pinion and Zeph, take a walk. And that's not a euphemism for anything else, I'm sure. Back on the Enterprise, Uhura says she's hearing from the captain. Scotty talks to him and they're able to set a course. Scotty asks what happened and Kirk is like, dude, you are not going to believe this crap, but I got to see how it plays out first. Tell you when I see you. Well, on their walk, Zeph is talking about all the stuff he's going to show her when they leave. But she says she can't leave. Her existence is still tied to the planet. If she leaves, she's going to die. So he decides he's going to stay with her. She gave up everything just to walk with him, so how can he just take off? Then he kisses her. The Enterprise makes it into orbit, and Kirk says we'll be right up. Zeph and Nancy Pinion show back up, and Zeph breaks the news that he ain't going to leave. Spock reminds him that they're both going to grow old now, but Zeph don't care. That sounds pretty normal, and he's ready for that. As Kirk and the boys are about to leave, Zeph asks Kirk not to tell anyone about him. Kirk agrees. As they're walking away, McCoy says, she was in the middle of stopping a war. Kirk is like, oh yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. And we roll credits. Great stuff. This is genuinely a lovely story, and I had forgotten how good this episode is. I doubt it's listed among many people's favorites, even my own, but it's still a solid story. So let's start with some favorite lines.
What's it like out there in the galaxy?
We're on 1,000 planets and spreading out. We cross fantastic distances, and everything's alive, Cochrane. Life everywhere, we estimate. There are millions of planets with intelligent life. We haven't begun to map them. Interesting.
The first of two Kirk speeches in this episode, this one is really pretty inspiring. It kind of sounds like an ad for Starfleet, but it paints such an optimistic picture of the Star Trek universe, I really like it.
How do you fight a thing like that?
Maybe you're a soldier so often that you forget you're also trained to be a diplomat. Why not try a carrot instead of a stick?
This is why I love Dr. McCoy. This line is the kind of thing his character was created to deliver. Kirk's reputation for phaser diplomacy is apparently pretty well known. But I don't know that it's well earned so far. Yeah, he went all splody on the Klingons and Errand of Mercy, but episodes like Corbomite, Devil in the Dark, Space Seed, they don't really bear that out. Heck, even in Conscience of the King, he agonizes over taking action without being sure, and in A Taste of Armageddon, while he does end up getting all phasery, he did at least try diplomacy before blowing up their stuff. I mean, Gary Mitchell was a full-on psycho murder god, and he still tried everything he could not to kill the guy. So McCoy is totally right about the carrot and the stick, but I submit this is really the first time we've seen Kirk have the choice between talking and shooting and choose to start blasting. It's still a good line, though.
Fascinating. A totally parochial attitude.
Doctor?
I love that our guys are completely baffled at how disgusted Cochrane is that the companion might love him, and how they all kind of painstakingly explain to the guy, you see, she's a she, and she loves you. Like, what do you not get about that? Yeah, she's a gas cloud. Who cares? And when Kirk says...
But I heard the idea of male and female are universal constants, Cochrane. There's no doubt about it. The companion is female.
I don't understand.
You don't?
It's really an interestingly progressive idea, especially for the time, and it's kind of accidentally even more progressive than they realized. Because it ain't anatomy that the universal translator is using to suss out that the sparkle gas is a lady, it's brain waves. That's where at least some of the maleness or femaleness of an entity resides, according to Star Trek. And Cochrane is the only one that thinks that's weird. Kirk, Spock, and McCoy are all like, well, yeah, duh. More on that later.
Mr. Scott, there are thousands of them out there they could be on. If they're on any of them at all.
Oh, that's right, Lieutenant. Thousands. And we'll look them over one by one.
One of the things I love most about Scotty is his loyalty to the Enterprise and her crew. Yeah, he knows searching the thousands of asteroids for our boys is going to be a pain in the ass and probably take a friggin' year. But he knows they're probably out there, and he ain't going to give up. Ever. Scotty is good people.
I have a small place over that way. All the comforts of home. I can even offer you a hot bath.
How perceptive of you to notice that I needed one.
If you don't mind.
This is clearly meant to show how out of touch Cochrane is with the times. He sees a lady and immediately assumes she wants to take a bath. He don't say that to Spock, but her response to him is fantastic. Kind of a, what, you saying I'm dirty? Kind of thing. They kind of go a little overboard, making her seem cranky and acerbic, but that line is really funny. There's also this scene right here.
Everything will be an eye-opener to you. There's 1,000 planets out there. 1,000 races. I'll show everything to you as soon as I learn my way around again. Maybe I can make up a little for everything you've done for me.
I can't go with you, Zephyr.
It's a really great little moment of Nancy Panyan kind of remembering how she used to see Zeph when she was a sparkle gas blob. But the cool thing is, this was before the production team had seen how the effects team was going to make the companion look. Episode director Ralph Sadinsky just threw that bit of business into the scene to show Nancy Panyan still kind of marveling at the change that she's going through, the metamorphosis, if you will. That scene was supposedly the last one they shot, and it don't seem likely that they weren't already working on the companion effect by that time. Now maybe they saw the footage and based the effect on it, but we really don't have any information about the exact timing. All signs really point to the similarity of the look of the companion and the pattern on Nancy's scarf being a huge coincidence, and that's really cool. Another bit of great stuff is the score in this episode. Aside from the usual canned cues we hear all the time, the original music for this episode was composed by George Dunning, who is known for scoring such romantic films as Picnic and From Here to Eternity, both of which earned him Oscar nominations. This was his first time to work on Star Trek, and he really knocks it out of the park. Great stuff. The Goof. Not a lot of goof in this one, but there is something that's baked into the story itself that probably should be mentioned here, and that's that it's really lucky they had Andy Taylor's attractive but terminally ill girlfriend along for the ride on this one. I mean, it's a total contrivance you kind of need if you're going to tell this story at all, especially in the 60s. But things would have gone a lot differently if Ambassador Fox was the one running the peace talks, you know? Also, Zeph don't want nobody to talk about him and Nancy Panion living on this asteroid? I don't think he's thought that through. She can't regenerate him no more, so if he's out there harvesting space corn or whatever and falls and breaks his leg, what exactly is the plan? And he's over 200 years old and spent 150 of those alone on this planet. I mean, I get she's cute, but you don't want to see nobody else? You can't leave, okay, great, but you can have guests over, you know? They don't gotta know you're Zephram Cochrane, you can just be Bob. I know leaving things behind and never checking in on them again is kind of a thing with this series, but this one seems especially, unfortunate. That television-less two-room octagon is going to start to feel pretty crowded in a month or so. Just saying, you should at least get Kirk and the boys to leave you with some board games or something. Production. Lots of interesting stuff about the production of this episode, but the one that impresses me the most is the scenes on the planet. All of that, the shuttle landing site, Cochrane's house, the field where he stands to talk to the companion, all of it was shot on a tiny corner of stage 10 at Desilu, and it was all shot in one direction. They just had to redress that little corner over and over to get the different shots, and it comes off without a hitch. The combined brilliance of director Ralph Sininsky, cinematographer Jerry Finneman, and art director Matt Jeffries made it so that while it still looks like a soundstage, it looks like an enormous soundstage, and the key component was a 9mm camera lens that Finneman admits he was still trying to get the hang of at the time, but was really the only way to make it work. Those of you familiar with photography know that a focal length of 9 friggin' millimeters is really wide, getting into fisheye territory. But it was really effective for these scenes. One thing that is kind of funny, though, is the ways you can see how they're trying to compensate for that. There's a shot that's through a hole in a rock at Cochrane as he's calling out to the boys, and the only reason that's there is because without it, you'd see the edge of the scene and a good chunk of the actual soundstage. Also, Zeph looks like he's about 50 yards away from the guys because of the wide angle, but if you watch, it takes him about 5 strides to make it the whole distance. They try to cut it short so it ain't as obvious, but if you know to watch for it, it's pretty obvious. But all that aside, it was really successful, and even knowing how they did it, I'm still amazed at how huge the planet set looked. Really well done. Interesting bit of trivia, the design of Zeph's house came from a gas station that Matt Jeffries saw in a AAA magazine that was built in 1927 to 28 in Burbank. And while we're on the subject of trivia, this is the first time so far that we don't see Kirk on the Enterprise at any point in the episode. Apparently, the network was wanting them to do an episode that didn't start with a shot of the Enterprise for once, and when they gave them exactly that, they complained that there wasn't enough action. Executives, am I right? So casting Eleanor Donahue was what you call casting against type. As we talked about in the overview, she was primarily known for Father Knows Best and being Sheriff Andy's girlfriend for a bit in the Andy Griffith Show. So, she was a sitcom actress. When Roddenberry called her to offer the role, she was already semi-retired from acting and was only taking one project a year. But she liked the opportunity to play someone unlike anybody she had played before, so this was the one for 67. Well, you know who's a really serious dramatic actor? The Shat. And he didn't think this sitcom actress had the chops to pull off this role in this message-heavy script and was apparently a major schmuck to her. She mispronounced Cochrane's name at the table read, and he got visibly pissed about it. Sininsky had to step in and tell him to knock it off. Well, one day, when they were shooting some of Kirk's side of the conversations with the companion, Donahue was about to go to lunch, and Sininsky asked if she would stand in for the companion and read her lines so Shatner would have someone to act off of. Now, a lot of stars don't do that, and some PA has to read their lines for those shots, but she always saw that Robert Young and Jane Wyatt on Father Knows Best never did that, and were always on set for those reverse shots. So she followed their example, and Shatner was really appreciative and noted that it was able to make his performance a lot more genuine to have a talented actor to do those scenes with. Donahue said that after that, the mood was a lot more warm and friendly, and she even got an invite to the private hibachi lunch that Shatner, D. Kelly, and Leonard Nimoy had out back of the stage, which was a huge honor. Now, I can't find if the Shat ever apologized for being such a putz to her at first, but I think I know the answer to that one. Finally, this episode earned the Westheimer Company an Emmy nomination for 1968 in the area of visual effects, which was a pretty new category for the Emmys at the time. The designer of the companion effect was a guy named Richard Edlund, who would go on to win an Oscar for a little science fiction project called Star Wars. Rumination. DeForest Kelley said that this is one of his favorite episodes, and considering he don't do just a whole lot in this one, that's saying something indeed. Director Ralph Sininsky and Dorothy Fontana have said the same thing. Eleanor Donahue loved it too, and said that her husband, Harry Ackerman, the owner of Screen Gems, if that means anything to you, told her that it was his favorite thing that she ever did. And I think a lot of the affection these guys have for this episode has to do with the messages. Now, you could probably derive a few more here and there, but there are two intended main messages in Gene Coon's script here. First, a message that actually came out of a script note to Coon from Bob Justman. As I alluded to before, NBC had told Justman that they'd prefer there be more action in the script. So when Justman told Coon about that, he said, if you can think of anything to get some action into it, it wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't help, but it wouldn't hurt. So Coon came up with their first attempt at getting free being the electrical scramble device, which only makes things worse, and then the real solution being to talk to the companion and try to relate to her. They don't threaten her. They try to appeal to her feelings for Cochrane. And speaking of that, we have our second message, and that's that love does not have a standard form. Now, we talked all the way back in the alternative factor that Gene Coon wanted to put in a romance between Lazarus and Lieutenant Masters, who was African American. And that aspect was removed from that script, so he saw an opportunity to pull a Jonathan Swift and put it in here, in the allegorical form of a man-cloud relationship. But Cochrane's objections to it when he discovers the truth had to have sounded familiar to a lot of people at the time. Spock's response:
your highly emotional reaction is most illogical. Your relationship with the companion has for 150 years been emotionally satisfying, eminently practical, and totally harmless. It may indeed have been quite beneficial.
Really hangs a lantern on the fact that Cochrane's issue is the label, not the reality of the thing. Now, once the companion zaps inside of the attractive lady, suddenly everything is fine, so we could probably debate whether or not that serves the message or undermines it a bit, and they do attempt to communicate that the companion and Nancy are both in agreement about this step they've both taken, so consent is apparently granted, but they could have spent a couple of lines on making that more clear. But the message is sound, and it resonates in many different ways, even today. It's also worth pointing out that this episode aired in the same year as the Supreme Court decision regarding Loving versus Virginia. Now, I ain't saying it's because of this episode, but it is a nice coincidence. So there you have it, Metamorphosis. I think it needs to be recognized that there was a gas cloud that was an actual character in this episode, and I didn't make one fart joke. Not one. Practically gave myself a hernia with the restraint over here. So what did you think of this episode? Think Zeph and Nancy Panion are gonna make it? Those are gonna be some weird kids, huh? Let me know down in the comments where you see things going for our happy couple over here. And thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up down there. And if you ain't subscribed yet, please hit that button too. If you just want to support the channel, we got channel memberships, Possum merch at adstudiosmerch.com, or just put some quatloos in the tip jar with the thanks button. But I'm already so thankful that you decided to spend some time watching stuff with me, Possum Rob. Next time, Kirk squares off with a Klingon with a receding hairline to negotiate with a nomadic warrior culture for some dilithium crystals, and then there's this whole thing with a pregnant lady and an assassination. It's a whole friggin' thing. Join me next time as we take a look at Friday's Child. Until then, possum friends are awesome friends. Take it easy, all right? Later. Spock looks into his bowl and he sees something weird. He tells Kirk to look into his bowl, and Kirk confirms it's weird. They open the windows and we see what they were seeing. They open the windows and we... They open the windows and we see what they was seeing when they was looking at their bowls. They open the windows and we see what they was seeing when they was looking at their bowls.